It's story time, new story day today, so welcome. Take a minute or 5 minutes, as long as you need, to get really comfortable. And while you are getting really comfortable and ready for a story, I will tell you that this podcast and all of these stories are supported by patrons. So if you're enjoying them and you would like to offer something back and become a patron too, you can do that on patreon.com/Can I Tell You a Story. patreon.com/Can I Tell You a Story. And you will receive bonus stories. There is a bonus story every 4 weeks, and there are lots of them there already waiting, and other things which you can read about on this site. And now it's time to visit the complaints department again. Sienna is named for the colour. She likes the darker shades best, burnt sienna, rich like red earth at sunset. But right now she feels raw. She remembers the long hot summers of her childhood. Days lasted weeks. School holidays stretched on forever. What happened to those days? Who pulled the plug on time so that it runs like water through a cracked vase? How did it come to this? Sienna is sick with the speed of time, days flying by like a strobe light, the too fast flickering, disorienting and dizzying. Day, night, day, night, day, night. How is it day again? It was just night, night again already. What happened to the day? Wake up Saturday morning and stretch, confused. Wasn't it Monday, just yesterday? The leaves are falling, weren't they just unfurling? Time has transformed into a hamster wheel and Sienna runs and keeps getting further behind. She feels like she's always bracing for something. She can never relax. And the days rocket past, and everything's too fast and too bright, hurrying and hazed. Sienna comes across the letterbox by accident. The main street is too busy. She ducks into the lane beside the bank, trying to find a reprieve, space to breathe. The silver slot in the bricks catches her attention, pulls her out of panic. Unexpected and out of place there in the wall, under the sign reading Complaints Department. After that first time, she walks past it many more, looking, wondering. What's it for? Is it an art installation? A joke? The letterbox clearly doesn't lead to anywhere. There's nothing over the wall but empty space. After a few weeks, in a moment of whimsy, she puts a letter in it. She feels a tender sadness as the flap that keeps the weather out falls closed. Sad because wouldn't it be nice if it were that easy? Write your woes and post them into a wall to nowhere and magically life will be transformed. Wouldn't it be nice if that was how the world worked? Sienna keeps walking through the laneway most days, looking at the letterbox, wishing. In the office of the Complaints Department, the strange organisation tasked with resolving complaints generally existential in nature, Simone is laughing so hard she can't breathe, and none of the rest of them can remember why. Sadie tries to catch her eye, knowing this will set her off again. Ewan, the junior manager, has his forehead resting on his arms, shoulders shaking, a muffled snort occasionally escaping. Silas sits with a poker face, pretending to be above it all, but his eyes are bright with suppressed mirth. It's nice, having levity in the middle of the paper piles of pain heaped on the floor beside Ewan's desk. He's given up trying to keep the complaints neat or in order, or even on his desk, as every time a new complaint materializes, it sends the whole pile cascading to the floor. There's a faint pop as Sienna's complaint materializes out of nowhere and lands on the top of the pile. Ewan, head still resting on his desk, reaches down with one hand. Opening the envelope, he turns his head and scans the page with one eye. Pushing himself upright, he puts it in Sadie's in-tray. Across the room, Silas pretends to pout. "I knew it," he says. "Sadie is your favourite." "You could pass it to me if you want to get involved," says Sadie, grinning sunnily. "Team effort!" "What's it worth to you?" Well, if I let you hand me that complaint, then I'll also let you buy us all coffee tomorrow morning. How's that? No, says Silas. Simone watches Ewan watching Silas like he's trying to figure out how the man manages to talk to Sadie without blushing, and smiles to herself. Sadie walks across the office and fetches the complaint herself. She reads the page and stares at nothing, thinking. What have you got? Simone asks. Strobe light days. She says time is too fast and she can't keep up. Take her to a disco. Simone's mouth twitches like she's about to dissolve into laughter again. Cruel, says Silas, grinning. It's perfect. Sadie doesn't hear him, a distant smile on her face. Penny for your thoughts? Says Simone. Thinking about time and where to get more of it. That clockmaker on Short Street? Says Silas. He just measures it, he doesn't make it. Silas bows his head, conceding the point. Penny for yours? Says Simone to Ewan, who shakes his head, blushing. Sienna is late for work, late for life, late for everything. Her mind is spinning 7 steps ahead, and she stumbles on the steps of her apartment building, arms full of bags and hands full of keys, and she wonders if all these things are as necessary as they seem to be. At the office, she hurries into the morning meeting, spilling her coffee on the table. Concerned faces watch her search for something to mop up the spill. You okay, Sen? You don't look so good. Yeah, fine, she says. Sorry. But she's thinking, okay? Am I okay? What is okay? She's barely finished the thought when another day has flown past and she's sitting at the same table in a different chair and someone's asking if she's sure she's not coming down with something. Yeah, she says. No, I'm fine, really. And then it's her lunch break, a reprieve, sitting in a city park. It's just a small concrete square with a spindly tree in the middle, craning towards the sky. The sky feels so far away between all these city buildings. Tinted windows with no faces at them, stacked up and up into the clouds, but they don't reach the clouds. The sky is receding. It's further away each time she looks up at it. Sienna looks at her hands, the bowl of noodles and stir-fried vegetables she bought without really wanting it, because that's what you do at lunchtime. You buy food and you eat it without tasting it, and then you go back to the hamster wheel. I like my job, she says out loud to herself. Don't I? Don't I have everything I wanted? Everything except time for anything. Sienna lifts another forkful of noodles to her mouth and she's surprised to find her eyes filling with tears. Is this depressingly utilitarian seat taken? Asks a voice with laughter in it. Laughter? Who's laughing? Sienna looks up, eyes hidden behind large dark glasses, chosen to keep the world at bay, and waves a hand, irritated. The woman has an energy around her like sunshine that Sienna immediately envies. I'm not staying, says the woman, as if she can read Sienna's mind. She couldn't read minds, could she? Sienna tries to smother her dislike with a smile of her own that's more like a grimace and turns back to her food. I just stopped to give you this, says the woman, holding out a business card. I don't need any Jesus or whatever you're trying to sell me, says Sienna, without looking. No, says the woman, putting the card next to Sienna on the bench. Time, though. Sienna's head jerks up, but the woman is already gone, vanished in the lunchtime crowds. Sienna picks up the card. It's thick and heavy in her fingers. There's a circle embossed on the front. She turns it over. On the back is an address. Beneath the address is an instruction. Knock 4 times, and then wait. Sienna looks up at the square of sky so far away. After work, she tells herself. I'll go and look, after work. She throws her half-eaten noodles in the bin and joins the flood of people flowing back towards offices and desks and screens and productivity. By the time the day evaporates, the business card and the woman who gave it to her are forgotten. Sienna's feet taking her on the path of least resistance towards the station, the doors of the late train closing just as she arrives on the platform. At the complaints department, Silas is flipping a coin, trying to make it land on its edge. Has she been yet? No, says Sadie. She's got no time for strange women offering unexpected exits. Ha, says Silas. Give it time. I did give her time, says Sadie, eyes dancing. She just doesn't know it yet. Weren't you going to buy us all coffee? Where's Simone? Out, says Ewan. She's got a young lass whose guinea pig ran away. Ran away? Is that code for parents didn't want to tell her it died? Says Silas, intent on his coin. Ewan shrugs. Maybe. Simone will sort it out. You were shouting us coffee? The coin lands on its edge and rolls across the table and onto the floor. I distinctly remember saying no to that, says Silas, standing and pushing his wallet into his back pocket. But if you call ahead, I'll go pick it up. He gives Ewan a meaningful look and mouths, ask her out, when Sadie isn't watching, leaving Ewan and Sadie alone. The look flies over Ewan's head unheeded, crashing into the wall behind him. A week has passed, or is it 2 weeks? Sienna doesn't remember, reeling from the strobe light days flicking past. It's a busy time, she reminds herself. It'll settle down when... When will it settle down? She's been saying that for years, and it hasn't happened yet. Today she's picking at a salad sandwich, and the spindly tree looks tired and wilted. When was the last time it rained? Sienna can't remember. She tips half her bottle of water on its roots. City noises echo in the concrete square, and Sienna feels a headache, looming like a deadline. She tries to breathe, and it's hard. A memory jogs her elbow. The business card. How alive that woman felt. Her presence like spring air. A stab of envy adds to the ache in Sienna's head. She empties the contents of her handbag onto the bench beside her, hunting for the card. It's not there. She isn't prepared for the sense of loss she feels, that something precious has been missed, like a moment that can never be relived. Back at her desk, she empties her desk drawer and wonders how it got so full of meaningless things. Paper clips and a dried flower, a stapler that she borrowed and never returned, post-it notes with lists on them that must have meant something at the time, scratchy pens that feel awful to write with, symptoms of an absence she can't put her finger on. The card is nowhere. The day passes, quickly. Sienna is carried by the surging home-going tide, buildings emptying onto streets and into trains and buses and away, receding for another blink before returning the next day. By chance, she glances up when she's usually looking down and sees the name written at the entrance to a side street. She knows the street. There's nothing down there. It's all building backs and no fronts. Some curious street art, but she's seen it before. The name tugs at her. The street? From the card? She fights her way across the road and turns along the street. Hope. Is that what this feeling is? Longing? Despair. There are no numbers. The backs of the buildings are old red brick, weeds growing in cracks, remnants of the city's bones before new concrete grew on top like a parasite. She's almost to the street at the other end when she sees the gate. It looks like it hasn't been opened in decades, iron hinges streaking rust down the bricks. The wood, sun-faded. She remembers, knock 4 times. And wait. Sienna knocks 4 times and she waits. She fidgets, wondering what she's doing. Is this the right gate? The right street? Is this some kind of joke that she's the butt of? Time passes. She can feel it like a breeze pushing through her while she's standing, doing nothing, feeling anxiety gnawing at her. She should be halfway home by now. Should be thinking about work, replying to that email, calling her mother. What's she going to eat tonight? Should have thought of that this morning. She's about to leave when there's a noise from behind the gate. A key. Turning. The gate swings open into the street. Sienna is surprised at how quietly it moves, given the look of the hinges. A small woman stands in the open gate, beaming. She looks like she knows time well. She's older and her face is wrinkled, her hair is short and soft white with hints of lilac. Come in, she says, stepping back to allow Sienna to pass, the gate closing on silent hinges behind her. Inside the gate, the city sounds are muffled and indistinct. Sienna finds herself in a walled garden. She can hear water somewhere. A brick path meanders into the undergrowth. Lanterns hang from trees, unlit. Tall stands of bamboo hide the walls. The garden feels bigger than it is. "Come," says the woman again, leading Sienna further in. Sienna feels the bricks under her shoes give way to grass, but her mind is miles away. She'll have missed her train. She won't have as much time for dinner. She'll have to pick something up on the way home. Indian? Or maybe that new Thai place. But it's hard to choose when she doesn't already know the dishes that she likes. The small woman turns and smiles, and Sienna smiles back, hesitant and guilty, like she's been caught out. She sees a small statue of a deer through the undergrowth. It blinks its long-lashed eyes, and Sienna jumps. It can't be real. In the middle of the city? The deer turns and darts away. What is this place? How did this happen? Things like this don't just happen. Sienna remembers the complaints department letterbox and the sadness after posting her letter, and hope flutters in her chest like a wild bird finding itself caged, and Sienna throws a blanket over it to make it stop, to make it sleep. The small woman has stopped at a pagoda with open sides. The sound of water is louder here. There's a fountain in a small pond with fish in it running under a bridge. A low table in the middle of the pagoda is set with a teapot on a small stand over a tea-light candle, keeping it warm. 2 cups are set out on patterned placemats. On another table to the side, a selection of objects are scattered like an augury: a stick, a thread, a bell, a bowl of leaves. Sienna thinks of the weeks gone by between her invitation. Was it an invitation? And today, and feels guilt wash through her at keeping this small woman waiting. "Have you been waiting all this time? I'm so sorry," she says. "Oh no," says the woman, "plenty of time." But there isn't, is there? She watches the woman pour tea slowly and carefully. The liquid is dark and red and smells sharp and fresh. The cup is warm in her hands. "What is this place?" she asks. "Who are you?" "My name is Doris," says the woman. "Tea first." Sienna tries to settle and be still, but it's hard. Her mind flies like the small birds busy in the branches above. The tea is tart and strong on her tongue. A breeze picks up and rattles wind chimes in the branches. "Here," says Doris when her tea is done. She hands Sienna the end of a red thread that trails down a pathway into the undergrowth, and a stick to wind it onto. "Follow this." Sienna's face is full of questions, but Doris just smiles at her and motions for her to walk. Sienna winds the red thread as she walks, feeling irritated, tired, sad. What is this place? Is this because of her complaint? Why can't she settle in and enjoy it? Something different, something strange. Her mind runs in circles like the circles of thread around the stick. Wasn't following thread meant to help you find your way out of the maze? This thread is leading her deeper in. It gets darker, the day fading. Sienna winds thread onto the stick and her mind winds backwards. She's a child again, sitting on the floor under an easel, her mother or her father, both artists, putting paint on canvas above her while she draws patterns in the dirt with her fingers. Sienna keeps winding. The trees rustle, the sky darkens and the birds quiet. She thinks about her job, her life, but her mind shies away from those familiar thoughts. Time slows down, and the garden expands around her. Colours glow in the twilight, sounds are clear as bells. The garden smells earthy and alive. Sienna walks more slowly. She doesn't remember having taken off her shoes, but the path is cool beneath her bare feet. The thread falls from Sienna's fingers and she sits on the earth, her body drawn down, the air warm around her. She stares up at the first few stars, all that are ever visible in the city. By the time the moon rises and casts a silvery shadow on her face through the trees, she's deeply, quietly asleep. Sometime in the early hours of the morning, just as the stars are starting to fade, Sienna wakes. For the first time since she can remember, she doesn't reach to turn off an alarm, doesn't stumble out of bed after hitting snooze too many times, doesn't down a black coffee while standing at the sink, lying to herself that she'll pick up breakfast on the way to work. Sienna lies on the earth and watches the sky change colours through the leaves of the trees, hearing the rustle and creak of bamboo in the breeze. Birds start up, sounding excited about being alive, and Sienna feels the day quicken in her own body and marvels at the feeling. She thinks of leaving the garden, faraway thoughts, getting to work. Shouldn't she be getting to work? What for? Isn't it Saturday? She could just sit here a little longer, watch the clouds stained pink by the rising sun. She wonders vaguely what Doris is doing. Does she sleep here in the garden? Does she mind that Sienna never went home? She gave me the thread. It's okay. It's okay. The thought feels strange in her mind. How long has it been since things have been okay, since she's been okay? The morning is slow. It's Saturday. There isn't work to go to, although on any other Saturday Sienna would have gone in just the same, to tie up a few things that never stayed tied. She wanders the garden looking at the shapes of leaves until she finds herself back at the pagoda. Doris is drinking tea that smells like cinnamon, staring up at the trees with a dreamy expression on her face. "Good morning," she says. "Yes," says Sienna, surprised to find that it is. She washes her face and hands in the clear water of the pond, fish darting away from the disturbance. "Help yourself," says Doris, and it's then that Sienna notices the small table has coffee on it in a silver plunger with a handle shaped like an acorn, and croissants, and more of the cinnamon-smelling tea, a bowl of strawberries and pears cut into slices. "Thank you," says Sienna, and she's surprised again to find there's nothing more to say. She spends 2 days in the garden. Doris gives her a sketchbook and coloured pencils, and she thinks about drawing or writing her thoughts, but mostly she just looks at things. Towards the evening of the second day, anxiety starts to fidget in her chest. "How do I leave?" she asks Doris. "I can't stay here forever, can I? I don't know how to be out there again without going crazy." "Try," says Doris. The sun rises and sets and rises again. When she walks from the station to work, Sienna feels like she's gliding through and around the worlds of others. She's a quiet moment inside all the busyness. She moves like she has all the time in the world. At lunchtime, she sits in the park next to the twisted tree and eats her sushi rolls slowly, watching the sparrows darting for grains of fallen rice at her feet. Someone sits down next to her. Sienna recognizes the feeling of laughter. It's the woman who gave her the card. "You," says Sienna. "I see you found Doris," says the woman, smiling. "I'm Sadie." "Thank you," says Sienna, wondering why she'd found this woman so irritating. The aliveness in her presence is like an invitation to share in a secret the rest of the world has forgotten. It's nice to feel like she's in on the joke. Sadie sips coffee and eats a baked potato from a box with a wooden fork, and the two women sit in a bubble of calm in the frenetic city chaos. "Will it wear off?" Sienna frowns, worried, never wanting to go back to how she was before. "Oh, probably," says Sadie. "But you can always go back to the garden. Doris liked you." Sienna smiles and closes her eyes as the sun finds its way from the distant sky through the buildings and warms her face. Sadie lets the door of the complaints department close behind her and narrows her eyes at the abrupt way the conversation stopped as she entered the room. "What are you looking so secretive about?" she asks, looking directly at Ewan, who goes red. "He was asking me for advice," says Silas. Simone presses her lips together to stop the laughter escaping. "Oh? On what?" Ewan throws a pencil at Silas to silence him. Simone looks like she's about to choke. "I'm free on Friday night, if that's useful," Sadie says to Ewan, watching his blush deepen. "Pick me up at 6 and take me on an adventure." Silas grins. Ewan can only nod. hope that you enjoyed this instalment of the Complaints Department. If you did and you would like more stories, perhaps you'd like to become a patron. Patrons receive bonus stories and other things, including my endless thanks. Literally endless. And long after my bones are dust, my thanks will still be floating around, haunting stuff. You can read more about that on patreon.com/Can I Tell You a Story. patreon.com/Can I Tell You a Story. Until next time, take some time, slow down, take a breath. Notice the small things and keep an eye out for a silver letterbox in a laneway. You never know.